combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live, and we're here with another Jimmy Rants episode just for you. And if you're brand new to my Jimmy Rants, I like to rant, you guys. I like to get on here and share about various topics that are out there in the world of nutritional health that maybe sometimes don't get the perspective because people don't always share the truth about what the perspective should be on various controversial subjects, especially. I ain't afraid of no controversy. That's why we call this show Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and what we do is we go live twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon on Instagram. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, go to @LivingLowCarbMan on Instagram, and you can generally get me about 9-ish in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and somewhere around like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We try to do these rants. Then what we do is post them up on YouTube so you can enjoy them for all of posterity. And coming soon, we're going to have a Jimmy Rants podcast. So guys, I am loaded for bear today with this Jimmy Rants episode because I am so tired of hearing people describe a low-carb ketogenic diet as a fad. Okay? So I guess we need to define terms here. A fad diet is something that is a flash in the pan. It comes in really white hot, really, really popular, and then goes away ostensibly because people realize it didn't work. It doesn't have sustainability. It's not going to stick around for very long because people found out it didn't work as well as they thought it would. What does that sound like? Oh yeah. What have we been doing since the 1980s? That's right. We've been eating a low-fat diet. And what has happened in the 40 years that have followed since low-fat diets became crowned the king of all diets? What's happened? Obesity rates through the roof. Diabetes rates through the roof and going higher. Heart disease through the roof. I could go on and on and on down the list of chronic diseases. Cancer, worse. Alzheimer's disease, worse. You name it, it's gotten worse because of the low-fat diet. Now, of course, to be fair, it's not just about reducing the fat in the diet that caused all these issues. What happens when you cut fat out of your diet? You have to eat more of something else. Well, your body is only going to just have so much protein before you just can't handle eating more protein. So protein as a macronutrient is very self-limiting. So if you're cutting fat, what else is left? Carbohydrate. And so we massively increased our carbohydrates. We massively reduced the amount of fat that we were consuming. And what was the net result? Worse and worse health. So if we're going to start talking about fad diets and what actually is a healthy diet to be on versus what is a flash in the pan that is showing no results came from it, I think that describes the failed low-fat diet experiment to a T. And so what I want to know here on this Jimmy Rants today is, why isn't the failed low-fat diet considered a fad? Now, for those of you that follow me regularly on Jimmy Rants, you probably do consider it a fad. But if you ask the mainstream, and even you see news articles out there, what do they say you need to do to eat a healthy diet? Lean meats, legumes, whole grains, anything that's reduced in saturated fat and total fat, all of these things that we know have failed 100% miserably over the past 40 years since it's become the nutritional law of the land. So in that light, why don't we call them out? And I'm calling them out today. The low-fat diet is the biggest fraud, the biggest fad that has ever been perpetrated on our culture where people believe it hook, line, and sinker. You could almost say we've been propagandized to believe that a low-fat diet is healthy. Does anybody actually feel good on a low-fat diet? Not many that I know. Most people that go on a low-fat diet, they only do it because they think it's the healthy way to go. They think, oh, if I cut my fat, I'm cutting my calories, so that helps me lose weight. They think I cut my fat and I'm eliminating the opportunity for my heart to be harmed in any way, not realizing the carbohydrates harm it much worse. They think all of these things because that's what they've been told in the news media, by doctors, by dietitians, by health experts. All of these people repeat this mantra that a low-fat diet is the way to health. And it's just darn wrong. So if we've seen it again and again and again, that people got worse and worse in their health, worse and worse in their obesity, why would we still embrace low fat? I have not understood that for the life of me. In light of all that we know statistically, you can track it, guys. Go look up the statistics. You can Google this. Go look up the statistics of obesity and heart disease and diabetes and all chronic disease since 1980, when low-fat diets became the law of the land. And by the way, they became law of the land under false pretenses. We told this story, and you've seen this story again and again in various books, but we told this story in Real Food Keto, my latest book, that one study, you guys, got published where it was called the 7-Country Study by Ancel Keys. One study that was using flawed data, where they actually had 26 different countries that he had data from, but he only chose to do 7 of them that fit his hypothesis that eating more saturated fat raised your cholesterol levels and thus you had higher rates of heart disease. 7 of the 20-something were used. Now, if you tried to only give the answers to 7 questions on a test that had 27 questions and you only answered 7 of them, what happens to the other 20? That's right, you got them wrong. And so if you don't include that data, you have failed, right? And so that's exactly what Ancel Keys did, though. And he's failed America, right? Because then that became in the zeitgeist of what the American Heart Association believed. That became in what the American Diabetes Association believed. That became what a senator who was a very powerful one in the 1970s named George McGovern, that's what he did, embracing this message. He's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He was relying on this flawed data, which, oh yeah, by the way, Ancel Keys got on the front cover of Time magazine for his research into this. That was flawed. Remember, flawed from the start. So then that bad science got echoed and echoed all the way to Washington, D.C., where it was embraced. And then he's like, well, we need to create dietary guidelines for Americans based on this. And that's how we got the very first U.S. dietary guidelines for all Americans in 1980, right? And what has happened since? I would say we have progressively gotten more and more unhealthy. So if anything describes a fad diet, it is the low-fat diet in spades. And I want you to start thinking about it in that way when people say, oh, you're eating all that fat on your ketogenic diet. Oh, that can't be healthy. Wow, well, we as a culture, we reduced our fat intake since 1980. And let's see, have people gotten more obese? Have people gotten more diabetic? Have you noticed that people they get heart attacks more often and cancer? What could be causing that? Maybe it's the low-fat diet. Maybe it was all the carbohydrates people had to eat when they cut their fat. And it might get people to start thinking, all right, I want to see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Definitely not much sickness sustainability with keto for life, literally over here. Yeah, and that's the other thing, the kind of day-to-day living stuff. People that are on a low-fat diet and eat more carbs, they tend to make themselves more susceptible to getting sick, whereas people who are keto tend to be a little bit more healthy. Welcome in, guys. Thanks for being here. People have learned helplessness. They keep hearing low-fat is the way to go. They keep running to the doctor thinking they have the answer and fail to empower themselves by listening to their body. And you say something in there, thank you, Keto Neogenesis. You say something in there, Beth, that caught my attention, and that is they keep running to their doctor where they hear low-fat is the way to go. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again often enough on these Jimmy Rants. Doctors don't know jack about nutrition. And yet, who is giving out nutritional health advice every single day? That's right. It's doctors. And while I love and respect what medical professionals do and what they have to put up with, they simply are not trained or equipped to help you in your diet. That's why you need a nutritional therapy practitioner, you need a naturopath, you need someone who's been educated in nutrition, understanding the ins and outs of the hormonal effects of foods and how they affect you, and to customize it to your bio-individuality. If you don't have all of those things in place and your doctor ain't looking at those things, I can guarantee you, then you're just basically getting advice on how to fix your lawnmower from your plumber. He might know, but it doesn't mean that he does know because he wasn't trained in that. Grandma Does Keto says it's a perfect storm of bad nutritional advice and directives, advertising, misdirection, mass-produced, and fast food. And I will add to what you're saying there. Thank you, Grandma. I will add that, yes, when the low-fat diet was basically came down from on high on Capitol Hill, and we had U.S. dietary guidelines that told people to eat low-fat, the food companies saw dollar signs because suddenly this very cheap commodity for them, grains and sugar, very cheap for them to have high fructose corn syrup and processed grains. They could make low-fat foods on the cheap, sell it to people as a health food because it didn't have fat in it, and yet they loaded it up with all this junk. So they had the perfect storm of the government's basically recommending this cheap commodity diet where people could eat this crap. They think they're eating healthy. I was that way for many years. I ate Snackwell's cookies. I ate all of this low-fat stuff, never once paid attention to what the carbohydrate or sugar count was. I only looked at fat grams. You and I both did that. Anybody that's dieted, that's had a weight problem or had some kind of a health issue where you're trying to eat healthier, we've all done that. We've just turned it over on the back. Okay, 1 gram of fat, done, and not paying attention that there was 29 grams of carbohydrates. Ever, until I went low carb. And yeah, it was definitely the perfect storm. That's changing now, thank God. But back in the 1980s, and even into the 90s, if you were dieting, you were pretty much on a low-fat diet. And where'd that get us? Joette Luttrick says the Arkansas Hospital is teaching a low-fat vegetarian program for their heart patients here. Yeah, we're seeing that more and more. We're also seeing pockets of keto being taught for various health things as well. So I know there's one in West Virginia. There's another one in North Carolina that I'm aware of where they're explicitly, especially for people that are bariatric patients that are trying to lose weight, they're really ramping up the use of a ketogenic diet. So chin up on that one. But you're right. Low-fat dogma still exists. Ant223344 says not just low-fat doctors, not just low-fat, doctors push low sodium, which is BS, since eating 1 to 2 teaspoons, my blood pressure has lowered 139/77. Yeah, saturated fat, salt, calories, there's all these kind of mantras that still are out there when you talk about being healthy and you try to talk to people in a educational way, trying to communicate this stuff. They're still caught up in all those little talking points that have been just ingrained literally deeply into our brains, so that people can't wrap their heads around why you would eat more saturated fat, why you would not eat grains, why you wouldn't do all the things that they say to do, why you don't eat lean proteins. It's definitely an uphill battle, which is a bit of job security for me, because I would have nothing to rant about if everybody already embraced keto and some of the principles therein, but that ain't happening anytime soon. Keto Neogenesis says, Snackwell cookies were my go-to obsession cheat when I tried the HCG diet to repeatedly lose the 10 pounds I kept gaining back. Yeah, back in my low-fat days, and I've talked about this, when my brother Kevin had his 3 heart attacks in 1999 in the span of a week, and he was 32 years old at the time, nearly killed him, and eventually did kill him at the age of 41. When he had those heart attacks in 1999, I was 28 years old. I was morbidly obese. I was eating junk. And my default when that happened to Kevin was to go on a no-fat diet. I basically kept fat grams well below 10 grams. How I stayed even functional without eating very much fat in my diet, to this day, I can't figure out. Only thing I can think of is I was so sugared up from all of the high-carb foods I was eating that it must have offset a little bit. But Christine will tell you, I was very angry during that low-fat year. I lost a lot of weight, ostensibly from the calorie reduction, I'm sure played a role in it, despite the higher carb food intake. I was miserable. I was constantly hungry. My brain was just like screaming at me for fat, and I wasn't giving it to it. And so Snackwells was one of the things that I did. I would always get those ones that were like the chocolate with the icing and then like a little marshmallow layer and then like a little cake cookie underneath. And sometimes I would justify in my brain, okay, I've been better today, so I'll have 4 of those cookies. And it was just 2 grams of fat. So you start playing those mind games. And again, I look at Snackwells today. Have you looked at Snackwells since you've gone keto? It's shocking the amount of sugar that's in it. And then you turn it over in the back. First ingredient, enriched wheat flour. Second ingredient, sugar. What were we thinking? That those were ever healthy? I would inevitably eat the whole box, then vow to do better. Yes, I've been there. I've been there, Beth. And unfortunately, people, they ate those things because they were convinced that low-fat diets was the way to go. And they had it was basically, sugar had no consequences at that point. None. 0. And it was unfortunate. D-Town Vapor says, I ate a ton of those in the 90s. Yeah, we all did. We made them who they were. And now hopefully this next generation of low-fat dieters don't get sucked in like we did. Beth says, you're a lightweight. You could stop at 4. I was starving. Well, I was starving too. And like I said, some days I would probably eat more than 4, but sometimes I would just say, well, I'm allowed 4, again, the calorie thing. So I would just purposely, I don't need to eat too many calories. I don't even know how many calories I had when I ate low fat, but it had to be obscenely low. It's part of the reason why my body probably got damaged even more, even though I was losing weight at the time. The damage I did from that low-fat diet, I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that today. Joette Luttrick says, my husband is still low-fat, thinks he has to be because of his 2 strokes, but he had those 2 strokes on an extreme low-fat diet before, been like this for 16 years now. Yeah, this is the thing that bothers me and why I think low-fat diet is a fad. People still embrace it, and they're not getting better. And of course, people, as they get older, they justify health decline and they justify, not necessarily being themselves anymore as, well, that's just what happens when you get older. We got to stop that. I'm going to do a whole rant on how it's not normal for health decline as you get older. That's not normal. Everybody expects it. I'm going to save that for the Jimmy Rants, all about that. Let me pop off of here for now. Thanks for watching this episode of Jimmy Rants. As always, go to jimmyrants.com and you can see all the past rants that we've done on YouTube. And if you want to follow me live, go over to Instagram, follow at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. And we do these twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. And then it's up for 24 hours for you to watch there. And then go over to YouTube. You can type in just Jimmy Rants on YouTube, and you'll find all the episodes, or you can go to jimmyrants.com. And coming very soon, we're going to have a Jimmy Rants podcast with like the best of these rants in like 15-minute format for you to enjoy. All right, guys, that's it. And we'll talk again real soon. Bye.